Well, welcome to the wild ride, and I think that's coming up pretty soon because this market's been going on. I'm talking about the general equities. It's been on the longest bull run ever in the United States history of equities. Before, it was the third longest run, and it was the second longest run. Now it's the longest run. The only time the second longest bull run in U.S. equity history has been in the 1920s. That resulted in the 1929 stock market crash. Now, are they going to do this during the Trump administration? That's a big question. Now, the one thing I'm looking at is, first off, I don't think they like Trump anyway, but he's going along with the big guys. It's quite obvious. He's not. Well, I think I was basically right about this guy, man. I was kind of like taking a lot of heat because I didn't really buy all the crap he was saying, but I still couldn't stand Hillary Clinton. But it is relevant to what's going on here because if Trump was really bucking his system and draining his swamp, if they didn't kill him, they would crash the economy, I think, immediately. But be that as it may, I don't think, well, you know what? Here's the deal. We've been on the longest freaking bull run since the history of the stock market. And what goes up comes down. I mean, it's just not, it's, in other words, there's always been natural cycles. We should have already been in a natural cycle quite a while ago. And I think that, with Trump pumping up NATO and all this kind of stuff and talking about, his new policies in the Middle East and stuff, it's going to lead to one thing to another. Now, I know the public is pushing back against war, but I don't think that's going to work because I could tell you from a historical viewpoint, just like old girl here at the Gaslight Cafe, she knows what's going on too. The deal is, like in World War One, people didn't want to get involved in World War One. They elected Woodrow Wilson because he promised that he wouldn't get anybody involved in World War One. What's going on in Europe? Of course, they had the Lusitania sail into the waters and they got sunk, and that was the reason for getting us in World War One, or excuse. World War Two. In August of 1941, a Gallup poll, which was a better poll back then, not the way they are today, said that 83% of Americans were against getting involved in World War II, which was already going on when Hitler invaded Poland, which was actually a joint invasion of Poland by Russians and the Germans. But they didn't people didn't want to get involved in World War II. So, lo and behold, Pearl Harbor. So, hey, could we have another false flag? I don't know. It's not a bad guess if we say we do have one. It's not a bad guess at all. It's common sense. In a dollar we trust. And here's the thugs that run the dollar. It's right there, smack. Not George Washington. In dogs we trust, man. The dogs of war. That's really what it is, man. The gang runs the money, man. That's the deal. Now, I'm going to tell you that I think what's going to be coming up here, if we have a stock market crash, it's going to have to happen, man. I mean, like, this is getting ludicrous. People forget that when the market started coming down in 1929, actually it really came down. They went up again after 29. They had a rebound, and then they went down in 32. They really got hammered in 1932. But since 1929, the markets didn't recover till the late 50s or the mid 50s. Something like that. It was like a good 30 years or something. We lose concept of these facts, because we've been on a long high in the markets. Now, you look at the real estate market, what happened in 2007, and people lost concept of what can possibly happen in the real estate market. They think, it couldn't go down that low. Well, it went down so damn low, you couldn't even build a house or building or an apartment building or office building for direct construction cost times 50% for what the retail sales price was going on. That's how bad the market went upside down. And that's probably what's going to happen with the equities. But when that happens, you know that the industrial metals are going to get hammered. Now, I've been a big advocate of palladium. I actually sold off a little bit of my palladium because, not a lot, just a little bit, because I think it's going to go down because if it's a 90%, it's a 90-something percent industrial metal, and with the markets being, the Dow being way the hell over 21,000, it's when the markets come down, palladium is going to be affected the most, and platinum, possibly silver, probably silver too. Gold, not really sure, because gold kind of has an inverse relationship with the markets. If everybody's scared, they buy gold. You know, but we're in for the wild ride as far as silver goes. There's no doubt about it. And the deal is, I think the writing is on the wall that, well, there's a lot of different writings on the wall, like on the back old girl here. I mean, there's various things going on. First off, you got the debt situation. We're approaching $20 trillion of debt. Now, that in itself doesn't mean the U.S. economy is going to blow up right away. But what I think is underlying, behind the scenes, besides the equities markets being on such a long high for so long, and the PE ratios, the price earnings ratios being skewed for so long, that the markets are overbought, which is probably overbought with computer algorithms trading with each other, web bots or something. But the deal is, I think that when you're looking at the actual economy, retail sales suck. It's like they're pretty bad. We looked at the Baltic Dry Index a while back. It was at the worst it ever was since they recorded it. And I know it went back up again a little bit, but it's still not good. And we also looked at the railroad traffic in the United States, which ships goods back and forth. It's really bad, and they're laying off railroad conductors. But the other side of it is this. The U.S. has an aging military arsenal, and they might be thinking of using it before they got to update stuff and before China gets really strong. That's another factor that's written on the back here, because the millennials, who are the ones that are the main drawing, that people would be drawing them from the population to fill the military. I was looking at statistics. About 71% of them are unfit for service, either for education, basic reading and writing skills, or having diabetes and being overweight. That's really bad, man. If you can't qualify for the military, man, that's pretty damn bad. And there's something like, I think it was 71% I saw someplace, that of millennials today are unfit for military service. So they're gonna have a hard time just getting people in, and they probably they see the trend. They probably want to hit whatever they want to do, whatever policies they want to pursue militarily. They want to probably do it right now or really soon, because, in other words, while we got the stuff, and also they're going to be able to do it even though the public doesn't want it to happen, because if you look back historically, the public was really vehemently against us getting involved in the war in Europe, World War I, which was already raging since 1914, and Woodrow Wilson ran on a platform of, in 1916, I'll keep our boys out of the war in Europe, and he's lying. And of course, FDR with the deal with the setup at the Pearl Harbor, where they allowed the Japanese to attack later on in 1941, December 7th. That was right hot on the heels 4 months earlier in August of 1941. A Gallup poll said that 83% of the Americans didn't want to get involved. 83% didn't want to get involved in the war that was going on in, with Japan taking over China, and also Germany and Russia taking over Europe. They didn't want to get involved. Nobody wanted to get involved in that crap. So, it's going to happen, man, because whatever the public wants, the public don't get. So, but you still got some stalwart freaking grannies out there that are probably going to kick some ass. Not the millennials. The millennials are just, the millennial chicks, they're all freaking too busy trying to be thin and smoking weed. The old timer chicks, man, with the old AK-47s and stuff with the pistol grip, man, they're going to be ones kicking ass for the USA. But, it's coming down to, like, well, you can pretty much predict the future just by looking at the past. Public opinion don't matter, man. Unless you're really going to force the issue, then it does matter. Hey, remember that time when was it back in the 1930s when they had the World War I vets marched on Washington D.C. and they wanted their servicemen's bonus that they were promised during the Great Depression. It was during the Great Depression they were promised it since World War I, and of course MacArthur was ordered to bring out tanks and disperse all the veterans that were protesting, and Smedley D. Butler was urging the veterans to behave in a good, rational, orderly manner. Well, you know what? They shouldn't have. They should have fired. They should have lit up Washington D.C. Man, hell with it. But right now, I think my generation, which is the baby boomers, is really not really relevant as they were before. What is really relevant right now is not the millennials either because they're too young. Probably the Generation X people. And I guess this date isn't really totally accurate with Generation X because Generation X and the boomers overlap somewhat, and Generation X and the millennials overlap somewhat because nobody really has exact dates. Probably Generation X would be more like, in my opinion, the late 60s to the late 80s. And in the 90s is, the millennials. Or early 90s, whatever the hell it is. So, but if you're looking at each succeeding generation, it's like they get more lame. They know less. The boomers ain't nothing compared to the Depression era World War II people. And I don't think the Depression World War II era people were anything compared to, the turn of the century in the 1800s people, because, the turn of the century in the 1800s people had to do everything without cars and trucks and refrigeration and electricity and communications by telephone, and they had crappy roadways, so, big difference. But what's coming on here is we got the big kitty cat. This is what it is. The big kitty cat is like gonna be freaking taking care of everything. Yeah, that's right, Mr. Putin the cat. Here he is. Anyway, what I'm telling you here though is that what to expect with metals, and you're probably not going to want to hear this because I think the metals are going to go right through the roof after the washout happens in the markets and we start getting on, the war machine starts getting cranked up. The metals are going to go right through the roof, and the reason is the war machine is going to get cranked up in the Middle East where there's oil, and every time there's tensions, big wars in the Middle East, oil goes right up through the roof. And that drives gold, silver, platinum, and palladium way the hell up. Because they're energy intensive, but it's also the fear factor. But when I think what's going to have to happen before they go through the roof is the markets are going to have to come down. There's an inverse relationship between, first off, gold and the markets, and the general equities. General equities are sky high. And actually, gold isn't doing too bad considering that general equities are sky high. So, when the markets start coming down, you're going to see gold move like a SOB, man. And that's when they're going to start pulling the plans out off the shelf where they're going to probably do the false flag and get us involved in World War III, even though freaking people don't want it to happen. And I'm not doing this as a fear video. I'm telling you, man. They've always done this before. World War I and World War II, they've done it before. And of course, you got Albert Pike out there that predicts all this stuff. Now, I'm glad we don't have Hillary in office because this broad is way too unstable to be at the helm, man. Now, Trump, I can tell you right now, he's really, I suspected the hell out of him because, there's one side of him where I say he's heads and shoulders above Hillary by a million miles. Is he did go to that military academy in New York, and he's got a patriotic streak in him, right? She didn't do any of that stuff. But she's not stupid, man, and she is very ambitious. But the other side of it is he's doing a lot, which he said he is morphing back. He's going towards the Hillary camp, kind of, a lot. But the deal is, I'm glad he's still in there because I think this lady is totally mentally unstable. It's like she would be doing something that would be screwing us up really bad over here just because she's an idiot. I'm glad she's not in. And so even though I'm criticizing Trump here, I'm telling you, I'm glad she's not in. And that was really my modus operandi for freaking voting for Trump in the first place. But it's rapidly unraveling what he said. He's in, man. I was kind of expecting this guy because he was buddy with this broad and the Clintons for like 30 years. You didn't hear him criticizing them way back in the 90s or the early 2000s about Whitewater and, Travelgate and, what else, the Maine, Arkansas deal and, Clinton going after all the bimbos and or her in Aberdeen when she was He was praising her way back when. Then all of a sudden he flipped 2 years before the election. You know, I've been observing that, and that's why he says, he's a guy that ran the what do you call it, the Apprentice, and also a guy that was on WWF. He freaking is an actor, man. Anyway, but he's better than his broad. That's all I got to say. But people want to believe in the BS. Here's heroin, 100 tablets. It's good for your political headache. Hydrochloride acid, whatever, 1 to 6 grains. That's the deal, man. Politics is a bunch of crap. That's why I didn't give a nickel to anybody running for office. I was like, get out of here. I don't even care. Say it's only $10 or $50 or whatever it is. I ain't giving those guys any money because they got Trump. He's got loads of money. Anyway, but the deal is, the master plan is still probably in place, even though the people are pushing back. People ain't really pushing back hard enough. One way to push him back, I guess you could say, is buy silver, right? Well, the beauty of silver, though, is really, like I've been saying this, besides for investment purposes, is that the medical uses. Medical uses are pretty damn strong. Reason to buy freaking silver. Man, if everybody just bought 10 ounces of silver, there wouldn't be any silver around to go around. Just in the United States, if people just bought a few ounces each, there wouldn't be any silver to go around. And it's ludicrous that people don't do this because in the medical, not to say that it's a cure-all, like the advocates of colloidal nanosilver silver say, it is extremely effective if you are a professional, medical professional, and you deliver nanosilver intravenously. Yeah, that's when it does really get freaking very powerful. But just taking some orally, yeah, but it still helps. It still helps, and it's got a lot of other uses besides for disinfectant purposes. It's amazing that people don't even just invest in it for that. But advertising is everything, and that's really what pumps YouTube. It's amazing that the silver people out there that are bullion dealers are not pushing this angle too. That's amazing. I don't know what the hell's the matter with them. But the master plan is still in place, and these are not the master technicians, of course, but the master technician is up there on the wall in the background with the old girl there. The deal, and the pictorial. But the deal is that when this happens, what I think is coming up is we are getting, Trump obviously is a wartime president. It's becoming pretty obvious that he is. He's putting more and more into NATO, and he's a hawk, man. He's a hawk. Hillary's a hawk too. Supposedly we elected Trump because he wasn't going to be the hawk, right? Yeah, sure. He changed his mind, obviously, or he's blowing smoke up our wazoos, which is really what it was. But I still don't want her. But the deal is, if you're out there and you can get something from the government right now, like whether it's food stamps or whatever the hell it is, go for it. Just like this guy over here at the church when they're passing out the money. Or wait a minute, that's a collection plate. He's like, thanks, man. Take it. Don't feel... I mean, I don't have any way I can qualify for that crap. But if you can, go for it. And I'm not blaming you for it because I know a lot of conservatives say, well, you should not take money from the government because the government's going... Well, the government's going broke anyway because of other crap. So you might as well grab whatever you can. Thanks, man. And, if you got any extra, buy a few ounces of silver. Don't throw all your eggs in there, but that's probably one of your best bets. Because the medical purposes alone make it well worth it, no matter what the damn price is, because there's a lot of weird ways, or I don't want to use the word weird ways. There's a lot of unique ways you can use silver for medical purposes. For pneumonia, like in other words, when you put it in a cool air mister and you breathe that colloidal silver into cool air. That's one thing. You can use it in as an irrigation of the bladder through a catheter for bladder infections. That works too. You can actually put colloidal silver on bandages for rapid healing, which because you're using the ionic silver actually helps the body produce stem cells, which minimize scarring, and it keeps the wound sterile too from infection. So even just taking some orally, there's other uses for it that can provide some medical miracles for you in the absence of medical treatment. So, and if you're a doctor or a nurse and you know how to administer nano silver intravenously, hey, then you're really talking to heavy duty stuff. So, but that's one of the reasons that you should really get it, I think, more than anything, beyond investment purposes, because you always want to have a good cushion of silver for medical purposes in your, survival kit, if you want to call it that. Just like old girl here on the trike, Anyway, boy, this is a badass trike, wasn't it? This was Triumph or something. Anyway, back in the '60s. So, I'm going to tell you though, but we're probably coming up to some era or two where we have a more of a national divide. And I put this out in another video because, the psyche of the South and the North, man, this country is not really. Actually, it's not even two countries. It's probably like at least 4 or 5 countries when you're dealing with the United States. It's amazing how we've held together. Now, you could say that with Russia, you could say that with China, you could say that with a lot of places. But we sure do have some regional differences in this country. That's no doubt about it. And if I think the economy gets stressed enough, we might just all break apart. I know that's been the theme of the fearmongers, but it might be reality. Who knows? But I think Russia's going to break apart too, and I think China's going to break apart. And if that happens, good, because that will really thwart the new world order. Because the new world order and the globalists want to get more and more real estate under the central control, so that you can, if you have fewer nations like a European Union, you can meld that into a global union. Well, it looks like the European Union is going to fall apart. So, I guess one of the best ways to fight back the New World Order is by states' rights here in the United States. That's another concept a lot of people aren't freaking getting on board with. 10th Amendment to the Constitution, right? So, but if we get into a major problem here in the USA and the markets come down, you might be saying to yourself, well, I don't have any money in the stock market. Well, you know what? Maybe you don't have any money in the stock market, but other people do. And that, you know what? That money represents capital that they can reinvest in the economy or in their own businesses for speculating on new ventures that might make them more money. And it also represents assets they could sell for their discretionary spending, which affects everybody in the economy, because for every dollar somebody spends on, I don't know, even if they blow $10 in a bar, it goes around. It's like, the bartender gets the money, he pays, he buys some more whiskey with it, the distiller uses that money to pay off somebody else, and blah blah blah. If you start drying up the money supply because the markets came down, because that does affect the money supply. I don't know what M1, M2, M3, M4. It's part of it. It's actually going to affect us all, and it could leave us like these 3 little girls here, pretty much destitute, because everybody is affected. Everybody's affected, and if billions of dollars of capital disappear because of a market crash, which I think it's a mathematical, given that the markets are coming down because we're at record heights. The PE ratios are freaking ridiculously skewed. They've been ridiculously skewed for 2-3 years now. We've been on a long run way beyond what we should have been. We should have had a correction back in 2015, for crying out loud. And, it might be happening during the Trump administration. I don't know. And then from there, it's going to be uphill all the way, man. But if you run a good motorcycle, you'll make it uphill anyway. But, it's going to be uphill economically all the way. And what I think is the way they're going to get out of the situation with a major market correction in the United States, and with all the debt that's out there in the world with the United States, is to devalue the dollar. Not devalue the dollar in relationship to the British pound, the Japanese yen, or the euro, but devalue the dollar in relation to the Chinese money, where we're getting money, where most of our imports from. And that is why I've been putting a lot of videos on the Chinese knives and stuff like that, and anything, because maybe they're not the greatest thing in the world as far as quality goes, but some of that stuff in China is not bad. But the thing is, if you buy it now, it's probably going to be a hell of a lot cheaper than in the future because I remember what happened during. Oh, sorry about that. I just had a little break there because the UPS came by and delivered me some money. So anyway, but I'm going to tell you that it's always nice to get money in UPS. But I'm going to tell you that the battle is going to be uphill when the economy. In other words, when the stock markets go down, there's going to be a lot of disappearance of capital, and that's going to affect everybody across the board because what happens is people invest in the markets, which is the people with the most money. They all tighten their belt, and when they tighten their belt, that affects everybody because if they're not spending, in other words, I put out the video a long time ago about local currencies. People that really spend the money in the actual economy, not when the government reimburses the too bigs to fail and they just hoard the money, but people that actually spend the money in the economy, they are what makes things roll by a factor of 10 or 20 for every dollar they spend. So if they don't have the money to do that, or if they feel they need to really tighten their belt because they lost all this money in equities that they thought they had on the books, well, it's going to affect us drastically. And probably not going to affect me because I am too smart. Swear to God, man. I tell you what, the guy I used to work for, one of the guys, he's a Jewish guy. He's actually in who's who in business and stuff in Florida. He's pretty big down. He's big down here for sure. This is before I knew that I possibly have a Rothschild lineage, which, man, I like to let him know that because he used to call me his good luck charm because I saved his ass so many times as his accountant. But he always said, "You're the guy that's going to make the shitloads of money." Me. He said that. He always said that about me. Now, I don't really think of that, though. And I don't think of money as the way other people do, but that might be true. Because I stick with righteousness, I guess you would call it that. I'm actually more legit than Donald Trump is. But I'm going to tell you something else about Trump. He could be playing to go along to get along, and maybe he's not. Because that's the strategy I would play. I'd be playing like I'm going along with him too, and I'd stick it to him when they least expect it, and play dumb about it. Oh well, no. He might, and that's probably why they don't want him in there. But when we have this major reset, there's going to be a major problem trying to restart everything again, and that is why. I tell you, some people like you're thinking about investing and stuff too. What about college, right? What about college? Well, you ever look at some of the most successful people out there? They never even went to college. Sometimes I kick myself in the ass for going to college. What the hell did I go to college and take a major in accounting and mathematics at 2 majors? And I'm thinking, well, maybe it's to discipline my mind, but I could have been making money by disciplining my mind too. But the deal, and it's like something, if you don't go to college, some jackass will throw it against you. But the problem is, the reality of the world is, in the business world, is this. If you don't produce something that they see a value for, in other words, if they're going to pay you so much, they're going to get more out of you than what they're paying, or else they're not going to pay you that. Just like when you make a purchase. Same deal. So, if you can have all the education in the world. If you don't produce enough for whoever's paying you, forget it. That's another thing. So why the hell even work for somebody? Why not just work for yourself, right? That's another deal. Now, I've been noticing a lot of these guys that are on YouTube that are independents that, they're kind of like hand to mouth and stuff like that. I'm not. And the reason I'm not is because I live extremely low key and way below what I could be living at. And that's why I'm cool. You know what I mean? I've been debt free since 1998. So it's like I can weather pretty much any storm. Pretty much any storm out there. And I think a lot of people on YouTube probably can't. Because I've been putting out some videos about people complaining about what's going on YouTube and stuff. And I mentioned several times that it's not really YouTube or Google. It's the advertisers behind the scenes. The big money don't want you to tell you what's going on. And I got plenty to say, and it's like sometimes I'm like, I wish I could condense it faster and give it to you quicker, but it's like I really can't because if I give you like a couple of quick sound bites on something that's catchy, I'm not giving you the whole damn story. But the game that's been going on in the United States with war and debt and the endless cycle of boom and bust in the economy, it's going to continue, but it's been exaggerated by the policies of the Federal Reserve and the banksters. And they make the most of their money when we go to war. So if they're in and the other thing is, if we ever get involved in World War III, which I think is coming up, man, I hate to say it, it's going to be the forebringer to world government. That's what they're going to be looking for, because World War I was about League of Nations. League of Nations didn't get ratified by the U.S. Senate, so they're planning the United Nations organization back in the early 1930s. As a matter of fact, when we went to when they had Pearl Harbor, they immediately called the Allied forces the United Nations organization. But the United Nations didn't come into being till after the World War II. But it was planned in the 1930s. World War II was to actually help usher in a United Nations, and then the United States was the leading part of the United Nations, right? So that's why I'm saying it's almost a given we're going into World War III. What do you do about it? I can't tell you what to do about it, because that would definitely be beyond the parameters of YouTube and advertiser friendly. What you got to do about it is you got to do what you got to do, man. That's what you got to do. But you got to be stealthy, polite, and smart, and hit them hard. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to be doing some other weird stuff on here. I'm probably I think I'm going to order one of them Cooters place horns from this has nothing to do with silver, and we're probably going to have a video on that. I'm going to install it on my El Camino, that Dixie horn, the air horn, like they had on the Dukes of Hazzard. I'm going to probably be putting that on there, so you can listen to that while you're kicking back, taking a heroin tablet or something. I don't know, whatever. God, Hillary Clinton, man. Hey, man, you know how the deal is. So anyway, let's. Well, let me just say, man, even though I'm saying it to you and I'm saying it myself, I am pretty smart in this way. It's not just book smart. I know how these yo-yos think, man, and I also know the major media and the alternative media. Well, the major media, forget about it, but even the alternative media, they don't get it right a lot of times. And sometimes the best way to defeat the elite is with some of the simplest things going. Oh, and the other thing I was going to say is college. If you're going to invest in college and you don't have money for college, I'm going to tell you something. What you could do: get a welder. A welder. That's one thing. You know what? You can make money with that damn thing. Get a paintless dent repair kit. Go practice on some cars. Get some money. What the hell? It's like cashola basis. You can wash cars and pull dents out. Make some money, right? Get a buffer. Learn how to use it without burning the paint. Get some, I guess the welder, maybe learn how to do security on houses or set up security systems and security lights. What the hell, right? You can go around and do that shit. It's not like extremely complicated, but it's more complicated than mowing lawns, right? Because some people try to get the idea they're going to go out there and mow the lawn, but most people know how to mow their own lawn, so they don't. There's not a lot of business for that sometimes. But maybe paintless dent repair is one. Maybe some welding repairs. Maybe putting up security systems, even if it's fencing. Fine, do it. And all that adds up. That could be side job money for your ass, man, big time. For minimal investment. So, and if you're, I'd almost say mechanic, but I tell you the truth, mechanics could be about as complicated as having 3 or 4 PhDs if you really want to know what's going on, especially with all this electronic crap on these cars today and bikes. But just telling you that thing, even about a simple welder, man. If you're flat out broke and you don't know what you can do, get a damn welder and just get some flux core, get some of that INE flux core or 4E wire. Don't even get Lincoln or any other type. Don't use any Harbor Freight wire, and don't even bother with the MIG welder stuff. Just flux core, but good quality flux core wire like the INE and stuff. That's that. You can spend a few $100 on that junk. You might have an investment that's going to give you a return on an investment thousands of times over. Because a lot of people are too lazy to do that kind of shit, And there's a use for it. There's always a use for it. Just put an ad in Craigslist and say, I'll come to your house and weld whatever you need. Cash basis, right? That's an investment. What do you do for education, right, when you can't afford it? You probably get more out of it. I'm just throwing this at her in the end because I know what a lot of people are thinking. What do you do for money? What do you do for money? But the world revolves around not the college. Actually, today college is, I probably should put a separate video on it, but today college is in a bubble. The education system, in other words, the price of it, it's ridiculous. As a matter of fact, most of these professors that go into colleges, they flunked out in the real world. In other words, they couldn't make it in the real world, so they decided to go teach. And then when you get in college, they freaking tell you to buy all these books that you never use because they're getting kickbacks on these books. So that's another way they make money, the professors. But the world revolves around, the people that build houses, the people that fix cars, the people that, install electricity and plumbing, the people that, do carpentry and framing, the people that build fences, the people that grow crops, the people that install driveways. That type of stuff. People that do networking too, which can get complicated with computers and stuff. In other words, if you're talking about this high-end YouTube stuff, and that's really what matters. That's what makes the world go around. And a lot of that stuff you don't learn in college, not at all. And actually, if you eliminated all the computer stuff, we'd still survive because we've been surviving as a human race for a real long time without all this computer crap. Not that many years ago, right? I mean, even that computer stuff could be out the door. But what may not survive is the U.S. dollar. And I think even though, in its present power, even though it's going to be around a long time, I think the big difference is going to change, and this is due to the debt situation, is in order to minimize their looming debt bomb, they're going to have to devalue the dollar in relation to the Chinese yuan. Not the euro, not the yen, not the British pound, but the Chinese yuan, where we're getting the imports from. And that's going to make all these imports sky high. So you might want to invest in some of this Chinese stuff right now. That's if it's a long-term investment, not junk. Something that's pretty good. So, over and out. And stay true to the cause. And if you're like Granny over here, just the chick right here that's going to be protecting her Social Security against any freaking encroachment on her pension and livelihood and her survival. So this the lady the Social Security Administration is not going to want to argue with. Anyway, and I'm going to probably put some gun videos out here pretty soon, because YouTube doesn't like them. And even though I don't have a gun channel, I have like an everything channel, right? But I can't see why the hell they would be so bent out of shape about having a gun video. Because Bloomberg don't like it. Screw Bloomberg. Anyway, don't screw Hillary though. And like, hey man, thanks. This could be like the guys on YouTube asking for the Patreon shit, right? Right here. Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, I ain't asking for that shit. I'd rather steal from somebody than freaking get that crap. Tell you the truth, I would. I'd rather mug people than freaking ask for Patreon. Tell you the truth, I feel like it'd be just say work for it. God, man, I hate that shit. I hate that shit. Unless I'm getting Patreon from Bloomberg, Michael Bloomberg. You can Patreon me $80 million right now. Okay, no problem, dude. Gates, you can Patreon me too. And you ain't gonna tell me what to say, bastards. You know what I mean? We ought to have a holiday in New York, a non-burqa day. How about that? You know, like all the chicks walk around naked. Anyway, shit. YouTube, we love you, man. We got to keep you free and open, and we got to kickstart this YouTube some more. You know, I mean, I'm telling you, man, they're after the tube because the tube has gotten so big. You know, the big guys want to control their voices now, so you know the deal. Oh, anyway. Hopefully, I'm slick enough not to get caught up in the BS, but I don't know if I am or not. You know, it's very difficult to say. Um, but I don't know. I'm gonna stick in with because if this turns into some kind of crap where I can't say what I want to say, it ain't gonna work. I'm not gonna say nothing. That's what'll happen. Or we'll put up code, or we'll give you some software you can freaking I'll put out the video in Latin and have a closed caption on the bottom, so we'll do it that way. Over now.